I think it's pre-15th century, yes.
Wow.
You nailed it, Gary.
Yeah. Fantastic.
A stone shot pulled from 100 feet underground on Oak Island is made of volcanic rock that doesn't exist anywhere in Nova Scotia. It's Azorean, and a Portuguese military museum confirmed it matches a 15th century ship-mounted cannon. That's not a clue that fits multiple theories. That's an artifact pointing at one country, one maritime power, and it's not the only one the team has found this season.
So the lead cross is not from North America.
It certainly doesn't eliminate the possibility that this is indeed a Templar connection.
The question isn't whether Portuguese explorers had the ships to reach Oak Island. It's what they built when they got here. Setting the clock. The Portuguese theory doesn't start with Portugal. It starts with what's been pulled out of the ground on Oak Island. Because without physical evidence, the theory is just a story about ships. The most tested artifact is the lead cross. Gary Drayton found it at Smith's Cove back in Season 5, and by Season 6 it was in the hands of Tobias Skowronek, a geochemist at the German Mining Museum in Bochum. Skowronek ran the lead through isotope analysis and matched it to medieval mining deposits in the Cevennes and Montagne Noire mountains of southern France, a region with deep Templar associations near Rennes-le-Château. His conclusion was clear: the cross is pre-15th century. He also noted that Romans worked that same mine, which means the cross could be even older than the medieval window. What the cross establishes isn't who brought it, it's when. Someone stood on Oak Island with a medieval European artifact in their hand, centuries before the money pit was supposedly discovered in 1795.
Holy shamoly, all right.
It's a cross.
That's a cross.
Then there's the rhodolite garnet brooch. Gary and Rick found it on Lot 8 in Season 5. Different location, different year, different artifact. Charles Luton Brain at the Alberta College of Art and Design examined the setting at 220 times magnification and identified something called block twisting in the wire. That's a Bronze Age metalworking technique. It was replaced by draw plates around 1340, which means whoever made this brooch was working before that cutoff. Luton Brain called the craftsmanship European, crude, and consistent with countryside craftsmanship. The silver setting contained up to 73% copper, consistent with centuries-old metallurgy. It's the only verified pre-modern gemstone ever recovered from Oak Island, and its dating doesn't rely on a broad isotope range like the cross. It relies on a specific manufacturing technique with a known expiration date. Between the cross and the brooch, two independent artifacts recovered years apart from different parts of the island both point to a window before the mid-1400s. The cross was found at Smith's Cove. The brooch was found on Lot 8. Different locations, different materials, different testing methods, and both of them land in the same era. Neither one is Portuguese specific, but both of them eliminate the British, the French, and every other colonial candidate who arrived after 1600. Whatever was happening on this island, it was happening centuries before any of those powers showed up. Rock that shouldn't be here. The cross narrows the timeline, the brooch narrows the craftsmanship era, but neither one points to a specific country of origin, until Season 13. This season delivered the strongest geographically specific evidence the Portuguese theory has ever had.
Always keep your eyes open on Oak Island. You'll never know when the island gives you a clue.
4 stone shots have been recovered across the island, from the Peacock 1 spoils at roughly 100 feet deep, from Lot 15, and from the broader Money Pit area. Archaeometallurgist Emma Culligan CT scanned the first specimen and found peck marks on the surface. Archaeologist Laird Niven confirmed those marks were characteristic of stonemasonry and that this type of stone shot was produced primarily during the 14th and 15th centuries, before cast iron replaced stone as the standard projectile. Then came the geology. Dr. Robert Rayside at Acadia University analyzed the composition: olivine gabbro and olivine basalt, volcanic rocks. His assessment was that the specimens may have originated in the Portuguese Azores. A Portuguese military museum went a step further, confirming the dimensions matched a 15th or 16th century ship-mounted cannon with a 4-centimeter caliber. In the war room, Marty said he was 90% certain the artifact is a projectile dating to the 1300s or early 1400s. Think about what that means. The cross tells you when. The brooch tells you the era of craftsmanship. but neither one can tell you where the person who carried it came from. The stone shots can. Olivine gabbro and olivine basalt don't exist in Nova Scotia. They're volcanic. And the Azores are volcanic islands in the middle of the Atlantic, exactly where Portugal staged its maritime expansion. The stone shots do something the cross and the brooch can't. They point to a geography, not just a time period.
There's a story here. I believed it when I was 11 years old, and I believe it now. And for me, it's not just retrieval of whatever's been buried on Oak Island.
Azorean volcanic rock on a Nova Scotia island isn't ambiguous the way a lead isotope match to southern France is. Someone brought military ordnance from the mid-Atlantic to Oak Island, and the Portuguese were the only naval power operating from the Azores in that century. What the ground remembers. Artifacts tell you who might have been here. The ground tells you what they were doing. Dr. Ian Spooner is a geoscientist at Acadia University who spent over 20 years studying Oak Island's wetlands. His core samples from the triangular swamp revealed that the area was once an open saltwater cove connected to Mahone Bay. The saltwater intrusion dates to the late 1300s or early 1400s, a transition Spooner attributed to likely human manipulation, though he didn't rule out a catastrophic storm. He said on camera that he's 95% certain human activity occurred on the island centuries ago. He described the swamp in 3 words: built, constructed, engineered for a purpose. Wood recovered from beneath the stone pavement in the swamp returned a radiocarbon date in the 1200s. That's not a colonial era date. That's medieval. What Spooner's data adds to the conversation is scale. The artifacts suggest someone was here. The geology suggests they weren't passing through. They were engineering the landscape, reshaping a coastline, building over a cove, doing work that required organized labor and sustained presence. The Portuguese, through the Order of Christ and the Azorean colonial network, are the only documented European power with the institutional resources to operate like that in Nova Scotia during that window. And then there's the coconut fiber, first recovered from the Money Pit in 1849 at depths exceeding 100 feet. Radiocarbon dated to 1260 through 1400 AD. Coconut fiber doesn't grow anywhere near Nova Scotia. It's a tropical material used during the Age of Exploration for ship caulking, rope making, and packing cargo. Its presence on Oak Island at that depth eliminates any casual or accidental explanation. This wasn't a coconut that washed ashore. This was material embedded in a construction project, brought by someone with a supply chain that stretched across the Atlantic. The Portuguese maritime network, running from Lisbon to the Azores to West Africa to the coast of Nova Scotia, is exactly the kind of operation that would have coconut fiber on hand as a standard shipbuilding material. The problem with convergence. Here's where an honest assessment has to slow down. 9 artifacts clustering in a 200-year window is unusual for Oak Island, where most finds date to the 17 and 1800s. The convergence is real, but convergence isn't causation, and the skeptical position has teeth. Over 70 British-era artifacts have also been recovered from the island, far more than the medieval cluster. Critics argue that a handful of medieval finds, however intriguing, are getting disproportionate narrative weight because they fit a theory the show wants to pursue. The lead cross matches southern France, yes, but southern France was also Roman territory and Cathar territory. The brooch's pre-1340 wire technique makes it medieval European, not specifically Portuguese. And Spooner's core sample findings, while compelling on camera, haven't been published in a peer-reviewed journal. The strongest skeptical argument is the simplest one. Documented Portuguese presence in Nova Scotia doesn't equal documented Portuguese presence on Oak Island. Fagundes operated at Cape Breton, roughly 300 kilometers away. No Portuguese document, map, or record names Oak Island specifically. The stone shots are the closest thing to a geographic link. The Portuguese theory is strong precisely because it takes the evidence seriously. The moment it starts ignoring legitimate questions is the moment it becomes just another Oak Island fantasy. The ships were real, but capability is something the skeptics can't dismiss. No document names Oak Island. The skeptics are right about that. But the Portuguese theory doesn't depend on a document. It depends on whether the institutional capability existed to reach Mahone Bay and conduct a large-scale construction project far from home. On that question, the historical record isn't ambiguous at all. When the Knights Templar were dissolved in 1312, King Denis I of Portugal didn't let their assets scatter. He transferred the entire Templar infrastructure, land, castles, wealth, membership, into the Order of Christ, formally established in 1318. Within a century, the order was funding Prince Henry the Navigator's systematic Atlantic exploration, with the Cross of Christ painted on the sails of the caravels. Gaspar Corte Real, a Knight of Christ born on Terceira in the Azores, reached Labrador in 1500. Fagundes recruited Azorean colonists for Nova Scotia by 1521, and the Barcelos family from Terceira maintained a documented presence near Mahone Bay from 1508 to 1583. Bartolomeo Velho's maps from 1560 show Gulfo de San Bernardo at 44.5 degrees north latitude. That's precisely Mahone Bay. The colony collapsed after Spain's Philip II conquered the Azores in 1583. The historical record doesn't prove construction on Oak Island. What it proves is capability, proximity, and sustained presence in the exact waters where the island sits, during the exact window the artifacts point to. Think about what the skeptic's strongest argument actually requires. You'd have to believe that a medieval lead cross from southern France, a brooch made before 1340, 4 stone shots from Azorean volcanic rock, a coin from Portugal, and coconut fiber from a tropical supply chain all ended up on the same tiny island by coincidence, while the one maritime power with documented operations in Mahone Bay during that exact period had nothing to do with any of it. No other candidate on the board has all three: capability, proximity, and timing. The pirates didn't. The British didn't. The French didn't. Everything points the same direction. Strip away any single piece, and the Portuguese theory survives. The cross alone is ambiguous. The brooch alone is ambiguous. Spooner's dating alone is ambiguous. But strip away the convergence, and you've got a problem. You have to explain why a lead cross, traced to medieval southern France, a brooch made with a pre-1340 technique, 4 stone shots carved from Azorean volcanic rock, a coin minted in Portugal in 1369, core samples showing human engineering in the late 1300s, coconut fiber from a tropical supply chain dated to 1260 through 1400, and documented Portuguese colonial operations in Mahone Bay all happened to coexist on a 57-acre island in Nova Scotia. Every other origin theory, pirates, the British military, the French, the Ark of the Covenant, requires its proposed builders to have been somewhere they aren't documented to have been, during a time period the artifacts don't support. The Portuguese theory is the only one where the physical evidence, the geological dating, and the historical record all point in the same direction. That's not proof. And this video isn't claiming it is, but it's the strongest convergence this island has ever produced. And Season 13 made it dramatically stronger. Before this season, the Portuguese theory was one of a dozen competing ideas. Now it's the only one with geographically specific physical evidence backing it up. 230 years of searching Oak Island have produced dozens of theories. Almost every one of those theories requires its proposed builders to have been somewhere they're not documented to have been. The Portuguese theory is the only one that doesn't have that problem. The ships were real. The colonies were real. The presence in Mahone Bay was real. And the artifacts keep landing in their window. The case isn't closed. But for the first time in over 2 centuries, there's a plausible answer to the question of who. And it sailed from the Azores. The Portuguese theory hasn't been proven. No single artifact bears a signature. No document names the island. And the academic consensus remains cautious. But something happened on Oak Island in the 1300s and 1400s, and the Portuguese are the only documented maritime power with the means and the proven presence in these waters to account for it. 9 data points spanning isotope analysis, gemology, petrology, geochemistry, and radiocarbon dating don't prove it beyond doubt, but they've made every other theory on the table harder to defend. If you want to see how Rick Lagina addressed the biggest theory the island has ever produced, and why he's no longer treating it as speculation, check out this video now.